Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is, as you have come to know it by now, the season finale here in season 7. And we always wrap up a season with what we are now referring to officially, after the past couple of seasons, the RFYL Awards.
Yes. I mean, it is our look back special, but it's a look back special turned on its head, reimagined into the RFYL Awards.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's lots of fun. I enjoy it. I just remember last time we recorded this episode, you were here. We recorded it in person.
Yeah.
Last October, so yeah, it's been 6 months. Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Time just keeps on going. Moving on and moving on. But yeah, that's how it works.
So this past season, one of the things we did was we covered seasons 1 through 4 and gave out RFYL Awards to those seasons that were not previously covered in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that was lots of fun. We had a couple of other special episodes this season, but we also covered a ton of movies. So I think we need to jump in non-shark infested waters and let's just dig in. Let's do it.
All right. And so those who have been around for a while know what we're doing. And then if you're newer to Run for Your Lives, this is your first look back special / RFYL Awards you're hearing, then quickly to catch you up on what we're doing. You're like, they're jumping into it and I don't know what's happening. So we look back. So we have categories. I don't know. I'm a big Oscars person. I like watching the Oscars and doing stuff like that every year with that. If you know me, you know that. Kind of influenced by that a little bit. So we've decided to take these seasons, the past 25 episodes or so, and then break those down by, categories that we give awards out. So we will have our best lead character or main character award. We'll have a best side character. We will have a best threat, which could be a villain, a monster, a natural disaster, a situation that's in the background that is causing whatever mayhem or problems that the movie and those characters are facing. Runs a gamut. It could be a bunch of different things that all fit into that. And then, of course, we will have the best movie overall, which is just, aside from our conversations, aside from the episodes, just out of the movies we watched this season, which one is our favorite, and then which episode. We'll have a best episode award, which is then a little different because really, the movie within itself isn't taken into account. It's not really what matters, but it's the episode, our conversation. Sometimes, like a lot of times, special guests come into consideration for that, or if it was a special kind of episode, or a certain conversation we had, or something along those lines. So we'll go through those. So we each, separate from each other, came up with a top 5. In a way, I don't have mine ordered 5 through 1. They're completely when I give them, I'll probably just give them in the order that chronologically that we release those episodes myself. But we just 5 that we throw out as our top nominations each. So we'll have 10 nominations overall, 5 from each of us. And then out of those 10 names, movies, people, creatures, whatever, then me and Daphne get to in real time without having any previous conversation or debate about this, have to decide between ourselves which one gets the win. And a lot of times, if there's overlap, since we do it separately, those are the ones that we're really going to consider, is if we have anything that both of us have put on our top 5s. So those are the ones that are definitely going to get the push above the others. But we can make arguments for stuff that the other person didn't nominate or vote for. So it's just open for debate and conversation. Hopefully it doesn't go too long. It usually doesn't. We can come to agreements pretty quickly sometimes. There have been occasions where it is a little harder. We've had to leave it up to you, the listeners, last season, I think. So
We did. It was a hard choice. I think, and I'm hoping that in this season we're able to pull it together.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff, and it's always fun to just like prep, I guess, for this, which isn't much prep. It's not like watching a movie and taking notes and doing some research and looking at stuff. Literally, I can do it like within an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Just today, just sit down and like kind of just hash it all out with myself and pick which ones. But it's fun to go back and look at all the movies we covered this season and then like look through my notes and like pull out the characters that I had the most to say about and be like, oh yeah, that person I really did enjoy, or that thing was really cool, and to come up with my list. So it's fun. And so now looking at it all together, some of these might be difficult, and other ones I'm like, oh yeah, that was clearly like still my favorite thing.
And so like other seasons, we did cover a Tremors film. But unlike other seasons, the Tremors film that we covered was the original one, and we are not allowing it to be considered for any of the awards this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's already had its chance.
Yes.
Actually in this season, earlier, because we did a like 1 through 4 like award style. So Tremors has already been up for something this season, so can't do it twice.
Nope. We definitely can't. So, I think we should get started with side characters.
All right.
And I'll go first, just because I'll have you go first on the next one. So, we can go back and forth.
Yeah, that's how it was. So we will alternate. So she'll give her first. I'll give my first. We'll go back and forth. So she doesn't give me all 5 and I don't then do. We'll go back and forth. So that way we eliminate some crossover by not just like having somebody throw out all their stuff right away.
Mm-hmm.
Give people a chance to maybe, depending on place. Again, I don't have them like listed in any specific order other than chronologically. The first one I give you will be the first movie that we covered in the season in the timeline of the ones that I picked. So
that's kind of how I did it too. But I'm going to jumble mine up. So my first nomination for a side character of the season is the prince of the buddy cop movie himself, PC Danny Butterman, played by Nick Frost from Hot Fuzz.
All right. Well, and this doesn't count as my first pick. But yeah, Danny is also in mine. So
yay!
That's already a crossover right away. But I still get to give my first one that you don't say. But yeah, so yeah, Danny is in mine. So the first one that I will mention is quite a whiz kid of his own, smart young man that also, without this character in the movie, as much as a side character he can be, the whole movie really wouldn't happen. The whole plot of the movie wouldn't happen without him. And that is Charlie Sandon from The Purge.
Oh my gosh. He is not on my list, but I do think that is a wonderful choice.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. I love me some Purge movies. I may and may not have had much Purge love on this list, but we'll see. My next one is from a movie that we covered, one of the few movies that we had a guest on for, and that is Rod Williams from Get Out.
Yes.
I mean, you have...
Well, is it any shock to you that is
on your list?
Also on my list as well? So.
Not at all. I had a feeling we were definitely going to have some overlap, so I'm totally, I'm cool with the overlap.
Yeah, because I even think when we did that episode, we were both like, so Rod's going to make it into this conversation,
It has to, right?
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I think
All right. So then my next that hasn't been mentioned is everyone's favorite wild shaping druid, Doric, played by Sophia Lillis from Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves.
Uh-huh. Love Doric. Love Doric. Did not have her on my list, but I do have Holga the Barbarian from Dungeons & Dragons on my list.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have considered Holga more main character than side, personally, I think is kind of where she fell, but that's okay, because a lot of these, like, that can be, you know, the definitions can be different and talked about. We've had that before. So yeah, so that fits. I will mention, well, I guess I can either mention it now or we can save. Are we going to do some like honorable mentions?
Yeah, I do have one honorable mention for this. Yeah,
because I gave myself a list of 10 and then whittled it down and had to pick 5. I was like 10 just off the top of my head, and then I had to do a little bit of math and comparing to actually get the 5. But so then those other ones are kind of honorable mentions, but so we'll get those in a little bit. So let's see. So the last one that I have that hasn't been already named, because like I said, Danny and Rod are both already on my list. So the last one I have that we haven't mentioned have had this nomination before. I think this is their second, maybe third. I think second nomination, and they are a joint effort. They're together. You can't separate them. They work together. They get the award together, the nomination together.
Have one without the other.
No. And that is, of course, the ghost hunting comedy duo of Specs and Tucker from Insidious Chapter 3 for this season.
Okay. So, they're also on my list.
Nice. Yes.
Because they're amazing, and they always have to be considered. Just fantastic characters. They just, throughout the whole, Insidious franchise, I feel like they keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy having them in there. So I guess I only have one more. I mean, I'm the one with the last one left.
Yeah.
And mine is actually Abra Stone from Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, that's... Again, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. We'll talk about things in a little bit.
Tell me. Oh my God. You consider her more of a main character?
I do. I really do.
I consider her more of a side character just because Danny Torrance was really the main character of Dr. Sleep, at least in my eyes.
See, there can be multiple mains. That's what
Okay.
For me, there are multiple main characters.
Okay.
In any given movie. I can't just pick one main. Sometimes you can, but then there's more of an ensemble. There are lead characters versus the support characters.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that it's partially because I am also currently reading Dr. Sleep, where it is very broken up, at least early on, that it's very much like chapters like Dan is the main character, and then it flips over. It's like, this is Abra's story. Abra's the main character, and it's very...
mm-hmm.
But yeah, so out of what we have, though, because I've mentioned... I've exhausted my list of stuff that hasn't been mentioned. So based off of those, I think Danny, Specs and Tucker, and Rod are the crossovers.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Aside from that, I still have Charlie, Doric, and that's it. As like on the outside, and then you had Abra, Holga as the outside.
Yeah.
So
I know, and you consider them to be main characters, so I do. Yeah, this is... I don't know. I don't know. Have we ever given it to Tucker and Specs before? I don't feel like we have.
I know they were nominated last season for the first 2 movies, but I don't think they took the win.
Maybe they should have, because, I mean, to be in 2 movies covered in a season.
Did I write down who won? I did write down who won. Yeah, they were nominated, but they did not actually take the side character win last season.
And who did take the side character win?
That was Shogo Kawada from Battle Royale. I
can't fight against that because Kawada was amazing. Okay. All right. This is really difficult because all three represent something different.
Yeah. Danny's great. I mean, Nick Frost, it's the it's that perfect Simon Pegg Nick Frost combination.
Yeah, they have the best chemistry. I mean, It's not even a bromance. It's just this, I don't know. The two of them together is just magical.
And then, you said Specs and Tucker have been nominated before. They are definitely worthy.
Oh, definitely. But then you have Rod Williams.
Which, really, while looking at it, if I'm honest with myself, is where I lean the most.
Me too.
Because...
Me too.
Again, I mean, Lil Rel, hilarious. Such a, hilarious actor, great actor, but then, that character really does save the day.
He's the only one who's really paying attention, I think. I mean, really. I mean, he's... Pake, I'm okay if we give Season 7 Side Character Award to Rod Williams. Get out.
Let's do it. I'm in. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Okay. So we've made a decision. It was a tough one.
Wasn't too bad.
It was tough, though. I mean, we had 3 overlapping, and I don't know what the next one is going to bring for us. But before we move on, we should mention honorable mentions for this list. Mine are just, I only have one. And it's Sean Gunn, Marty Espenson from Belko Experiment, because he was so much fun. And one of the reasons that I really enjoyed that movie.
Cool. And then I'll have 5 for every
Excellent
one. Unless one of my honorable mentions was one of your picks, then I'll have less then. But I'll just go through them real quickly. So, and these were ones they're not going to make that top 5, but they're ones I really want to point out. Small role, but Bill Skarsgård's Keith from Barbarian.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Sophie from Silent Night.
Absolutely.
Then I have Ambrosius Goldenloin from Nimona.
Oh my goodness.
Voiced by Eugene. Then I have Baz from Sharknado. And then lastly, I am with you, Marty from Belko.
You have to, right? I mean, he's just so much fun.
Yeah.
He's so great.
Sean Gunn is a lot of fun.
He is.
Yeah, of course, he was in there too. Yeah.
We need to find more movies that fit our genre that have Sean Gunn in them, because he just brings this element that most movies need.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to main character.
Main characters, and I will kick this one off. So, Specs and Tucker are not going to be the only wonderful duo that include the name Tucker that will be talked about today. Because we got a couple of rednecks that everybody absolutely loves. At least if you've seen the movie, you'll love them. If you don't love them, you better learn to. Because we are, of course, talking about Alan Tudyk and Tyler Levine as
you were gonna go
Tucker and Dale from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. And again, could I pick one of them to take the main character slot? Absolutely. I could, each have their own merits, I think. But
no.
But they are a combo deal.
Yeah. If we covered more movies with duos, and then we could have a duo category.
Right.
But I don't know that we do. So, I don't know. It's something you think about for the future.
Yeah, because I feel like I couldn't give a main character award to just Tucker or just Dale.
No.
Because they need each other.
Yeah. I feel like I need to rewatch that movie again. When I was looking at the list today...
Everybody should always rewatch that movie as much as they possibly can at any point they want to.
It's just so fun.
It's good life advice.
I can't believe that it took me so long to watch it. I had never seen it. It's really, it's definitely something.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one is Art from Silent Night. Roman Griffin Davis.
Yes.
Fantastic. Just performance, and the movie, it had, the movie had all these different moments in it, but his portrayal of Art was amazing.
Yeah, that kid is incredible. Roman is so great, and we had so much to say about him and dote on him that whole movie. And then you have since watched Jojo Rabbit also,
I have.
And seen more of just how incredible he is. I hope for more and more things. I think we talked about in that episode some stuff he may be working on, so I hope to see him again in the near future. Because, I'm talking about him that much because
he's on your
also
list.
One of mine, of course. Of course.
I knew it. I knew it.
My first one, or my other one, my second one, but my next one that I can give that is not mentioned yet. We did talk about him a little bit, but that is Dan Torrance from Dr. Sleep.
Okay. Did not have him on my regular list, but he is in the honorable mentions. My next one is not really a character. It's more of a real life person. And that is Numa Turcati of Society of the Snow.
Our faithful narrator.
That movie, we may talk about it later. But I watched a lot of the things that were connected with the making of that movie. Mm-hmm. And it just made me appreciate the performances even more. Because the actors really went the extra mile. Enzo Vergrinchik. I mean, I don't even know what you say. I don't think there are words for what he and the other actors did in that movie. So I had to put him on my list. Nice. I had to put Numa on my list. It's weird to put a real life person, and it feels, I don't know how to explain it, because the actor was playing an actual person. Mm-hmm. And so that was, it seemed a little strange, but I just think it needs the attention.
Yeah, it's a good choice. So then my next one is where things get a little interesting based off of our previous conversation. And typically, I try to keep myself to only picking one character from each movie that make my top 5, but in this instance, I just couldn't.
Oh boy. Okay.
And so also, hand in hand with her co-star, co-main from Dr. Sleep that I mentioned last, Abra Stone is also in my nominations for main character.
Of course.
It's like a half crossover. It's like a half crossover point. Because you mentioned her, but not in this category.
I feel like we need to make more defined parameters for ourselves so that, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would like to have better understanding of what you look at when you think of main and side characters. So, okay. My next one should be no surprise to you. Mike Milch, John Gallagher Jr., The Belko Experiment. There shouldn't have been any surprise that I was going to pick that character. It's one of my favorite movies. I can't really tell you why. It's just, I really, I dig it.
All right. And then my last one for the main character is going to be Chris Pine's Edgin from Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. The bard who, after our conversations, seems to be quite the roguelike bard. A lot of roguish features to him. But yeah, I view him as definitely like the main character of that, which is weird because with Dungeons and Dragons, it's a party. It's supposed to be an ensemble thing that everybody kind of shares the load equally, but that's in real D&D and versus a movie, which you kind of have to have a lead character whose story is carrying the plot, and that's definitely him. Although I do feel like Holga was very important in her story as well.
I believe so. Michelle Rodriguez was one of the best parts of that movie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Her potatoes.
Yes, always. Man, so I have a couple left, which is not usual. So I have 2 left. My next one is Brad Pitt's Jerry Lane from World War Z.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is Nicholas Angel, Hot Fuzz. Chorus played by Simon Pegg.
Yes.
Whew. We had one overlap.
Yeah.
In the character.
So do we give it to Art on just principle of that's the, like, again, it's not set in stone that we have to.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone that we have to. No, I'm just kidding. Because Abra does have a half crossover point.
Yes. Yes, she does. And several of the ones that you picked were on my honorable mentions list, so.
Same. So
yeah.
It goes the other way on that, too.
So, yeah, it's... You know what? I think we give it to Art. Yeah. I think we give it to Art because we had a lot of great, we had a lot of great main characters that we celebrated this season. And, Silent Night was our Christmas special. That was way back in December that we recorded that episode. But when I went back through our episodes today to kind of put my list together, I gravitated towards that character.
Yeah.
Again, easily. Like, it was not a question. There were a couple that came up first. That was one. Numa came up, like, right after. So I think we give it to Art.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Great character. A lot of just really good stuff there. And then just to always give some more love to the actor, to Roman Griffin Davis. May he have an incredible and wonderful career ahead of him, if he so wishes to. Because sometimes kids jump out of that, and that's great too. Let him be a kid, live his life as well. But if it's something he's doing, I'm watching. I'm on board. So
well, it's a great movie too. And his brothers, his 2 brothers are in it, and his mom directed it. Like, it's a family project, really. So, my honorable mentions were Danny Torrance from Dr. Sleep, Edgin from Dungeons and Dragons, and Tucker and Dale from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Yeah. So then my other ones, let's see, the ones that were crossovers would have been Nicholas Angel from Hot Fuzz and Mike from the Belko Experiment.
Yay!
More crossovers. And then the other ones that I mentioned, Tess from Barbarian.
Yes.
Nimona, titular character from Nimona.
Mm-hmm.
Her and her shape-shifting ways. And then lastly, Chris Washington from Get Out.
I thought about that, about having Chris Washington, but then I just went back to Rod Williams and everything that he did and decided that, no, I need to keep him.
Yeah. And sometimes actor does play a big part of it, because I'm just absolutely a huge fan of Daniel Kaluuya, so that always helps.
That does help. He's done some great things too. I want to see more from him. I feel like he's done amazing things already, but I want more.
Yeah. Always more.
Bring it on. Bring more. So that brings us to Threat. So, my first one, since it's my turn, I'm going to go with is Megan from Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Because so freaking amazing. The dance scene alone was amazing. Okay. I'm excited for Megan 2.0.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Of course, the dance, you talked the hallway. That's, it's okay to me. Honestly, it's the scene with she's in the forest going after that little bratty boy. That's the best, just okay. Yeah, it's good. Begin. And we talked about it with that episode. It's just what went behind that character of kind of like the animatronics versus some CGI when needed, but then also having an actual just like gymnast and ballet dancer, like somebody who's able to like handle all that, like a kid under the costume, and that little girl was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So again, as I said earlier, the reason I'm adding to it and saying more is because that is also going to be my first one that I had on there.
Amazing. Okay, good.
But then my next, another character who also terrorizes Violet McGraw. Going back to the world of Dr. Sleep, Rebecca Ferguson's Rose the Hat. Oh my god. Again, is it because I'm also reading the book and working through that and then like getting deeper into that character? Maybe, but also not really, because even without that, regardless, Rose would definitely make my list because she's just like, Rebecca Ferguson is so magnetic, but then also her role of Rose in Dr. Sleep is just so terrifying and like to where you're drawn to her, but horrified at the same time.
Yes, 100%. I have to agree with that because it's also on my list. It's not hard for it to be.
Yeah.
So my next one is the Armitage family from Get Out. Because you can't have one without the other.
That's I bunched them all together too. They're not in my top, but they were a honorable mention. I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least they were in consideration. I threw them whenever thinking about stuff. I threw them in.
You
together.
have to, because they're just, oh my god. As a unit, they're even more diabolical.
Mm-hmm. All right. So my next, staying in the world, Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a few threats that we could have picked from. Some very deeply terrifying. But I decided to lean away from the scarier and go with the more conniving, clever, and hilarious delivery of Hugh Grant's Forge.
While not on my list, Forge did make an appearance on my honorable mention.
Yeah.
Because it was so much fun. That movie, I did not expect to have as much fun as I did watching it, and he was a big part of it. Because he was ridiculous.
Yes.
And like you said, there were a lot of threats. What he added to the movie was equal parts humor. And I think it was what was needed to kind of pull. It helped. It took everything. It was really an ensemble. And he was a big part of that. Okay. So my next one is The Greater Good.
The Greater Good.
The whole town of Sanford from Hot Fuzz. Because they weren't just one or two. It was a whole community of people that were conniving and crazy and murdering.
Yeah. The NWA.
Oh, man. So what's next for you?
So for me, I'm going to dive back into one of your favorites. I already know. We haven't got to movies and stuff yet, but I mean, I know you well enough. So one of your favorite movies, but with one of my all-time just favorite actors and favorite humans, playing a character and a human that I despise, but yet he's so good that it's fine. Wendell Dukes from the Belko Experiment. John C. McGinley. Just being amazingly awful and in every way.
Oh, man. You know what? Whether it's stalking female employees, stabbing other coworkers, or dragging one of your best friends out of an ice cooler so you can kill him. What could be more terrifying than Wendell Dukes himself?
Yeah.
Man. And it shouldn't surprise you that that's on my list as well. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, how do you not?
So I have one more. And we're going to go. I mean, I had so much to say about this thing in a very recent episode. And that is, of course, the Shimmer Bear from Annihilation.
Okay. You know what's funny about that is, I remember during that episode I was talking about Maurice from Dead by Daylight. Amelie listened to that episode and she was so excited that I brought up Maurice and that he looked like the bear. Like, I had to do it. Okay, so we have 3 that are tied. We have Megan, we have Wendell Dukes, and Rose the Hat.
Yes.
For me, I know exactly where I'm going.
And I do too. Out of those 3, I have a front runner for sure. Now, whether ours match, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to count to 3, and you say what yours is, and I'll say mine.
Oh, God. And they're going to be totally different, and then we're going to have to figure this out. But if they're the same, it's going to be cool.
It's going to be cool. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. Rose the Hat.
Rose. Okay, yes! We did it!
I'm like, it's gotta be Rose the Hat. Oh my god. I love the others, but it's gotta be Rose.
Yes.
We've never done that before where I counted down like that, so I've always wanted us to, so I had to do it.
It works, too. Yay.
My honorable mentions, the director from Nimona, who was horrible. Of course, I said Forge from D&D. And my last one is basically it's Chad from Tucker and Dale, but it's more the prejudice that was like a hive mind thought process of him and his group. Like judging a book by its cover and not really getting underneath to learn more about the person. And so it was very close to being on my list just because I think it's really easy to look at movies and look at, oh, well, there's a bad guy or there's a bear or there's, a tornado or whatever. It's really easy to see all that. But I think the evil that was taking place in Tucker and Dale versus Evil was equal parts Chad and equal parts this hive mind of prejudice against Tucker and Dale.
Yeah, mine, Chad, was also in there. The mother from Barbarian.
Oh my goodness.
Barbarian made my, honorable on, a lot of things, just because, it's one of those that I really enjoyed. It's going to get thrown on as an afterthought. Honestly, some of these make this list knowing that they're not going to make my top, but I was like, but I'm going to give them just a little nod. Like, the monster from Sweetheart, whatever it was, the shark monster thing. Was interesting. And then lastly, I want to give some Five Nights at Freddy's love with both Steve or William Afton. That was great there. And then the ghost kids and the animatronics, even though spoiler, within the movie, they might not be the most evil. They're kind of controlled and things as we learn, but they're still quite a threat. They are some terrifying things.
Definitely.
To deal with, for sure.
Well, I think we've crowned a winner.
Yes.
I think she'll wear it proudly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now we're on to movies.
We'll go just favorite movie. Now this is going to be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, because when I was putting my list together, I had to separate in my head which one did I love because of the movie, which one did I love the episode. Like, what was exciting or fun about was it the episode?
Yeah, 2 very different categories.
It is. And I had a little crossover, but not much. So.
All right. So just out of the movies we've watched this season, which one is our favorite collectively? Because, we definitely have our own favorites for sure.
Yeah.
But the first one, I'm going to mention again, I'm throwing them out chronologically as we covered them. So we got to go all the way back to the beginning. Technically. Not exactly. Because technically Bloodlines started this season, even though it was kind of
we did a real weird thing.
It was a weird thing. But Tucker and Dale versus Evil was kind of the, official kick off. And that's definitely one of my favorite movies of all time, so I have to include it.
So you had to put it there. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I did not have it on my list. It's on the honorable mentions list. However, the first one I'm going to mention is Nimona.
Yeah, it was a special movie. Yeah.
I had never planned to even watch it. I didn't even know about it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm so glad that I do.
It probably would have been one that I completely just passed up and never knew anything about if it wasn't for it being nominated for Best Animated Picture at the Oscars. And then, so I was going to watch it for my Oscar watch anyway. And so then after watching it on my Oscars watch, I was like, I want to watch that again and cover it because it'd be a great conversation and I can loosely make it sense. And we're doing a little Oscar thing. So, which a little heads up for next season. We're going to take as you guys know, we'll take a month, 5 weeks or so off after this episode. And then we'll come back with next season. The Oscars watch will kind of continue after that break when we get there because Godzilla -1 is finally readily available for people. So we will be covering that pretty early on in next season. I'll go ahead and give that little spoiler there for you to be looking forward to that.
You know what else is available and not on the Oscar watch? Godzilla Kong.
Mm-hmm.
The New Empire. I am super excited about it, although from what I understand, it really should be called Kong, The New Empire featuring Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk all about that.
But we'll talk about that.
All right. So my next in the top 5 here should be no surprise to anyone when you take just directors into account. I mean, who's Pake's favorite director? Here's some Run for Your Lives trivia. So we can't cover an Edgar Wright movie and it not be on my list. Obviously, Hot Fuzz is right here in my top.
And obviously, it's also on my list.
Yeah.
I've given it a bit of love the whole episode so far, so why should I stop now?
Yeah.
So my next one is Society of the Snow. As terrifying as it was and how graphic it was, I just think it's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And it, unfortunately, was up against some really stiff competition in the Oscar season.
Yeah, so yeah, it was up against a lot of great movies in that category. Let's see, so my next, let's talk about top favorite directors. And then, so, Edgar Wright might be my number 1 slot, but if I'm giving a top 5 on directors, somebody else is also going to be in that.
I think I know.
Honestly, even though Stephen King is still alive and kicking and doing great things, I think I have to hand off the mantle of, king of horror. At least in,
he's in training.
Modern, right? Yeah, the modern king, the very, today's standard, the most modern king of horror, it's Mike Flanagan doing a Stephen King adaptation, which I've gone on the record many times telling people to this day is my favorite Stephen King adaptation movie, and it's Dr. Sleep.
Yes. Well, Pake, Dr. Sleep is also on my list.
Nice.
So, there's that. So, the final movie on my list, since I have all these movies that overlap with yours, is, and this shouldn't be that much of a surprise, Get Out. Because I think as much as it's Mike Flanagan, who is the heir apparent to the universe of Stephen King, I think Jordan Peele is making a case for himself with his movies.
Yeah.
So that rounds out my 5.
All right. I still have 2 more.
I know. This is crazy, right?
We'll go. So we'll go through those. One is just a movie that I love. So much fun. It's it's going to be mentioned everywhere. Mentioned it in every category so far. Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I love it so much. I mean, I remember going and seeing it in theaters when it opened with my D&D group, my party, the campaign there, and going and seeing it together, and me all of us being a little wary because we're little leery of it because it's is it gonna be good? Because the last one forever ago really sucked, and can we make a Dungeons and Dragons movie work? And now I've seen it several times, and I just love it every time I watch it. And I mean, you can listen to that in that episode, me just like nerding out over just so many of the things that I love that about that movie and what was included and all the little Easter eggs and nods. And yeah, it's honestly about as perfect as I think a D&D movie could be made today. Like, oh, it's great. Had to include it. And then lastly, one that obviously even if you hadn't already read all your names, I had no expectation of it being a crossover, but I had to include it for myself because that is Annihilation, Alex Garland's sci-fi horror, just visual what the fuck fest. And again, you know I love Annihilation so much. I was glad we got to talk about it recently. Been on this Alex Garland kick, and so yeah, it's going to make my top 5 for sure.
Of course it is, and you knew it was not going to make mine.
Nah, but that's okay.
But it's okay, because I do love Alex Garland, and he's done some other movies that I really enjoy. This just wasn't one of them.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I think really the only 2 crossovers were Hot Fuzz and Dr. Sleep.
Yes. We're going to fight to the death.
Oof. It's tough for me because it is like...
It's Mike Flanagan.
It's Mike Flanagan versus Edgar Wright. That's tough.
This is a problem. This is a serious problem for you. I know that you're having a problem. I know that this is something that is not easy for you.
Yeah. I think, although this is... I'll put it this way, because if you take... Yeah, those are like my like 2 favorite directors. But if I'm going to say, what is Mike Flanagan's best movie? Dr. Sleep. Is Hot Fuzz Edgar Wright's best movie?
Sometimes.
In my opinion, no. It's great. It's great, don't get me wrong. But like there are other Edgar Wright movies that I think are better and even better than some we have, covered.
Some that don't fit our genre.
Right.
There's one in particular I really, really love that doesn't fit our genre at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if that can be something to contend, I think I lean towards giving my vote to Dr. Sleep.
Okay. All right. That's interesting that you would say that. Because if I'm being honest, am leaning more towards Hot Fuzz.
Mm.
Because overall, the ensemble cast that came together for that, not to begrudge Dr. Sleep or the cast that came together for that one, but the ensemble cast that came together for Hot Fuzz were a who's who of British acting.
Yeah.
And
it's tough because I could go back and forth depending on like what parameters I want to look at things through. Like I said, best movies overall, and like as far as just like most impactful, or I think just like most well done for like a certain story. Like, man, Dr. Sleep is incredible, but also watchability. Which one am I gonna like on a dime just be like, I have to put on one of these movies right now and just watch it? I love Dr. Sleep, but it's a hard watch sometimes, and it's not one that I can watch super often because it is brutal.
It is.
Hot Fuzz is going to be an incredibly fun time every time I press play.
So it's very difficult because I also really felt Dr. Sleep was an incredible adaptation. The way that he pulled things into that movie and took you right back to the way you feel about, Jack Torrance and the story.
And again, me reading the book right now, I'm almost done with it. I've done a pretty good job. And having watched the movie several times before and now reading the book, realizing Mike Flanagan is doing things very different than the way that Kubrick did The Shining. As far as it is an incredibly faithful adaptation. I'm reading dialogue in the book and going, holy shit, this conversation is word for word. Like,
yeah.
It was...
And a lot of people who read books, when they go to the movie, they don't want directors to take huge liberties. They want to see a faithful adaptation. Now, in some cases, you get books like the Harry Potter series, where you can't show every single character because it's just too dense to be able to be brought to the screen that way. So you have to you have to take liberties and cut things to be able to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always nice when a director is faithful to the source material. And Kubrick did completely. I mean, he scared Stephen King with The Shining that he created.
Oh, yeah. I swear, again, I've seen The Shining several times before, and then reading The Shining afterwards, and it was a very different experience of me going like, this wasn't there. Oh, this was changed a lot. This wasn't a thing. Like, there's a lot of important things in the book that were taken out completely or changed in a very major way.
Yeah, for shock value.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really. The miniseries that came out for The Shining was much more faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
The miniseries that came out was a much more faithful adaptation to the original source material, The Shining.
Yeah. But we've
talked
gone
around
on
it,
tangents.
Pake.
We've gone on tangents because we can't.
Because making a decision about this is very difficult.
It is.
You know?
Like, I feel like I've talked myself into both. And then I'm like, well, no, it makes sense. Well, you should do this one. But then there's also this. So, no, actually, it makes sense. We should do this one. No, but because of...
Yeah, it's very hard.
Isn't this where we got stuck last season, too, was with the movie?
Mm-hmm. And what did we end up with?
Well, it was between 28 Days Later and...
Shaun of the Dead,
I believe. Which is funny. They're a lot more closely compared. And I think we just ended up letting the audience, the listeners,
they picked
vote
for us
on that. I don't know if
what
did they
pick?
Though.
Do you remember what they picked?
I'm going back again because I opened those notes recently to check. I'm going to go back and look at it again. Look back. Let's see, character. Oh, we had 3. That's right. It was Shaun of the Dead, Insidious, or 28 Days Later. And I don't have it marked which one actually won because we announced that. When did we even announce the winner? It was like, I think it was on the Bloodlines episode because it was technically the next episode, like next season, but we like released it like the next week because it was Halloween.
I don't know what won.
But I don't remember which one actually won.
For some reason, I want to think it was Shaun of the Dead.
It makes sense.
Well, I can tell you this. I do not want to have to take this to our listeners.
No. As much as we love having their input and value that, we can't just like lean on that as a crutch every time.
We have to be grown-ups, and we need to make grown-up decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go with you on this one for Dr. Sleep.
I'll take it. I'm not going to overthink it.
You do know what that means.
That I pick better movies.
No.
No.
We have one category left, and I may have something I want to push for, so.
Yeah. I mean, Hot Fuzz is the closest of close that a second place can possibly be. It really...
I don't know. I think last time it was really close between those 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they all at least were remotely, like, similar, not the same, but similar enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, I'm perfectly happy to give Dr. Sleep the award. Because, yeah, if I would have said at the beginning of the season, like, we're covering Dr. Sleep this season, be like, and it should win at the end. Regardless of whatever else we're doing, so it's good. But there's a lot of great movies. Always great.
Pake, I had a couple honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
Belko Experiment for sure. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Barbarian. And World War Z.
Nice. I think I might be a lot on the same place, because let's see. I'm already like which ones were actually in my 5. Yeah. So Barbarian was also honorable mention for me. As was Nimona was an honorable mention. It was one of your picks. Get Out was one of your picks. It was also honorable mention for me. World War Z was one. And then as kind of like a lowly mention, just a nod to, was just something I don't know, again, that I would have watched, but then because of the podcast and I ended up having enough fun with it, was Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yay. We had so much fun with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I guess that's more of an episode thing, but it was cool to do something different. You came up with that concept, and it took us a while to get it worked out, but then we did get it worked out, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So that leads us to the final category of the night, Best Episode. And again, what separates that is it's not necessarily like that conversation where we're just looking at the movie as a whole. The story is told, the casting, the adaptation, if so, that's what it is, the directing, all of those things that go into enjoying a movie. This is about after watching the movie and then nothing to do with that itself, but then the episode of Run for Your Lives, the conversation it led to, the jokes it led to, the interactions we had with guests, or sometimes it doesn't even have to be a movie. There are episodes that we did that are not talking about movies. We did the 1 through 4 awards. We did another look forward where we talked about other movies that we would like to cover. We had an episode where we just talked about random things that had nothing to do with movies. So there's a lot of other episodes there, and all of those. We had a Tremors rewatch that technically could be part of the episode because we're not talking about the movie. So there's a lot of other episodes that don't fit in any other like movie category that could also be in here.
Yeah, that's true. They might be a little bit different. So my first pick is Nimona. And it's because the conversation that we had was about the movie, but it went so much deeper, and we talked about things that I think are important today.
Yeah.
Talking about accepting other people that are different from you and being more open-minded to having those conversations with people who may not look like you or act like you or talk like you or whatever. Like, just, or have different beliefs. It's just, keeping your mind and your heart open to, having those conversations. And so that was a very important movie for me this season. Also because I had never heard of it and didn't really plan on watching it. So it just ended up being or meaning more to me. Kind of like Mitchell's versus the Machines, where we had these great conversations. And I remember thinking as we were going through, seasons after that film, I wish we could come up with another one like that would invoke or start that conversation so that we could go down on the tangents again about different things.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to get another. It's always good to throw in a good animated movie that ends up being a lot deeper than you would expect. Again, I haven't seen it, but I talked about that look ahead. There's one I mentioned in there that we might have to do next season. I'm curious to watch it and see. Jordan Peele is behind it, so...
So you know what that means. We're on board.
Yeah. At least a lot of the producing and stuff there. Anyway, so my first episode, and some of these are literally just because it gave me an opportunity to laugh and joke and just like have a good time. So the movie aspect does bleed in a little bit because it was such a great movie and it's such a fun movie that it leads to me having a blast getting to talk about it and rehashing it. So that's why Tucker and Dale versus Evil is also gonna be included in my list.
It was on every bit of your list. Like it was, yeah.
It was almost every category.
Yeah.
Almost. Not every, but almost.
A lot of them. Yeah, I think it definitely stood out. It kind of stood out enough that I had it on my list as well.
Nice.
Because I had a lot of fun with it. It's not one that I don't know. I don't know why it took me so long to watch it. But after I did, our conversation, we were laughing so hard about this movie and all the different things that were in it. But then we also talked about the serious things too.
Mm-hmm.
The prejudice and, just because someone looks different or acts different doesn't mean that that you can't get to know them or talk to them. So I had to include it as well.
Nice.
So, my next one might be a surprise to you. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Now, that's my next as well, so that is also included.
The reason is just because listening to you talk about going to D&D for the last couple of years, and then this movie comes out, and it's like, maybe this will answer all the questions I have about D&D, because you love it, and I'm just curious, because even though there were series and movies that have been out before, I've not really watched any of them, mostly because I've heard they're terrible, so I don't waste my time. It was amazing to get to watch you nerd out about all the stuff going on in that movie.
Yeah, and it made my list on the flip side of that coin, because I had the opportunity to nerd out about a bunch of stuff, and that was fun.
It was so much fun. And I learned stuff. Like, I definitely learned some things while watching it and talking about it that just make me, curious. Even more curious. So I hope they do another film. I think they should.
Absolutely.
Because I know I'll have more questions.
All right.
Okay.
So then my next one is Get Out. Including that. Had just a wonderful conversation. Again, got a little deep, which deep is not always bad. Sometimes it's great. And then having a guest on there, having Rinaldi on for the first time. Hopefully we'll get to have him back. Maybe give him something a little lighter that we can just joke and laugh about a little more, not have to get super real all the time. But I think we had an incredible conversation with him. He's so much fun to hang out with and talk with. And so it was great to have the opportunity to have him on and just really, kind of pick his brain on things and get to it was a learning experience, I think, for everyone, for all of us. So that
definitely
was really cool. So yeah, that one just meant a lot to be able to do, and I'm glad that he was more than willing to come on and talk and hang with us on that.
Yeah. I think I have another movie on the list that he indicated interest in that isn't quite as heavy as that one.
Yeah.
Because that one, I mean, that was a deep movie on its own. But the conversations that we had about it were compelling. Yeah. And it was beyond just talking about a movie. We really talked about society and so much more in that episode. And we really didn't have a lot of guests on last season. We only had Jack and Rinaldi for the whole season.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also on my list for all the reasons we just talked about. It's just going to be rough, Pake. It's going to be rough. We're going to have a real tough decision coming up. Okay, so it's my turn. And this is my last one because I've said them all. This one, also incredibly dark, but with moments of humor. Silent Night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really interesting movie that was not really what we expected it to be jumping into it. I think a lot of people with. And it's a dark comedy. And it's like, oh no, it's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
Very subtle on the comedy part, guys. Yeah. But yeah.
But it was a conversation.
Yeah.
I know the movie was dark. I know it was difficult. But the conversation that we had just meant something to me. Like, I just really, I think this season we didn't shy away from tough conversations.
Yeah.
We had a bunch, we had a bunch of movies that were deep. There were issues under the surface that we dug into. And that's one of the things I love about this podcast is that we don't shy away from those things. We will talk about whatever. Yeah. So.
All right. So again, I am left with two more after you're done. So we'll go through those. First one is one of those episodes that has nothing to do with the movie at all. So it wasn't even looking back at movies, looking forward at movies. It was the episode titled Just a Chat with Us that I just had.
Oh my gosh, I almost picked that. It's in my honorable mentions.
Yeah. Because I had a blast with, again, all of the podcasts I listen to on my own time are all just shooting the shit, random conversation, just conversation podcasts. So that's like my wheelhouse as far as what I really enjoy listening to. So to get the opportunity to do that and just go in with really no plan and just have a conversation and talk about stuff. And it seems that a lot of the listeners enjoyed that and appreciate it. So had a lot of follow-up questions and comments and things on that. And that's awesome. So I think we might do that again. But I had a blast with it, just to kind of shake things up and do something really different. It was a nice breath of fresh air for a movie podcast to just do something completely un-movie related. Yeah. So, I mean, we're not going to do it very often, but, you know, we might sprinkle them in here or there.
It's nice. I mean, there was no prep. I didn't even have any talking points. It was just really...
Which is always nice, because sometimes, as much as I love doing this podcast, there are days where it's like, I'm excited to talk about it and do it, but it's like, prep is going to take me like 5-6 hours sometimes. And it's like, there's an entire day. And I enjoy doing it. I love it. But it is nice every now and then to be like even like for this one right here, this prep took me
so
like
great
45 minutes and I'm done.
That was it.
To where it's like, I don't spend my entire day. I could watch other things. I could do this. I could do that. So it's sometimes nice to just like, no prep. Let's just have fun.
Yeah. I love that episode too for the same reason, because people really just got to listen in on a conversation we would have before or after recording.
Yeah.
And
much.
It was interesting for me to do that, because we just have never, we talk all the time, but it's not recorded for people to listen to. So
yeah,
it was something different. And yeah, people really did seem to enjoy that episode.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then lastly, of course, as you mentioned, I guess we only had 2 guests this entire season. Mm-hmm. So I'm mentioning the other one. You talked about it a little bit on those like last honorable mentions. But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's, and just, again, doing something different and having Jack on and getting a child's perspective, a literal child, a kid on our podcast to talk about something that we knew nothing about, and he did. And so he was, for the time we had him on, to be able to just kind of have some questions answered and get that perspective that we've never had on this podcast before is really cool.
Yeah, and by the time the next one comes out, he'll be a little bit older. Mm-hmm. So maybe he'll be willing to come back and talk
Maybe
with
we
us
didn't
again.
scare him away forever.
No,
so we'll
I don't think we did. He had fun, but I don't think we scared him away either. So he might come back. There's so many sequels in the works for movies that we've covered that I can't keep them all straight in my head, really.
Right.
It's like, I forgot that was being made. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this leaves us with 3 that overlap.
There were 3? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tucker and Dale. Did you have Tucker and Dale episode?
I did.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Did you not have Dungeons and Dragons?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Get Out. So yeah, there's Tucker and Dale, Dungeons and Dragons, Get Out.
They couldn't be more different.
Yeah, they really.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, boy. This is really tough.
It is a tough one.
And no, we're not going to send this to our audience. Mm-hmm. We're going to do this. Again,
I have, without thinking too deeply and trying, and not doing what I did last time with the movies of like, oh, but this, but then what about that? If I'm just like, nope, right now, quick answer, gotta go. Then there's something that does jump to the front for me. Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm looking at with this is what was the most fun? Mm-hmm. Which episode did I enjoy recording the most? Mm-hmm. And it's hard because 2 of the movies are definitely lighter than the third. I had a ton of fun when we covered Dungeons and Dragons and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Those were so much fun. I also had fun recording with Rinaldi, even if the subject matter was harder, or more difficult. Where are you leaning?
Honestly, just, again, kind of looking at that, which one was overall the most fun conversation that I just felt the most just yay, after.
I know exactly where you're going.
And it's Dungeons and Dragons.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course. Because you had the most fun.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is like the NFL draft and making decisions that come around create these situations where it's, here's a trade and there's a player to be named later. I did have fun during Dungeons and Dragons. I did. Watching you nerd out was just... I saw a side of you I had never really seen because you were just completely nerded out on it. I can't overlook Get Out because it was a great conversation. And Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I had never seen that movie and it exceeded my expectations in every way. It's one that goes on the list of, I could have that on in the background anytime because it's just one of those movies that you can do that with. I feel like we went with something really heavy for the movie. I kind of want to go maybe a little lighter for the episode, but again, it's about which one did I have the most fun, and I had a blast in all three of them for different reasons. But I'm against my better judgment.
Is it, though?
I think I had the most fun doing Dungeons and Dragons.
Wabam.
But I can't disagree. Like, I had so much fun with that one. That was the first movie that I put on my list before I even looked at the rest.
So that says something.
It does. And I got to see insight into your obsession with D&D, so it was a lot of fun.
Yay. Yeah, it was awesome. All right, perfect. Well, before we close this thing down and end another season officially, go on a little break. I'm going to just recap back over those for those who are interested again. Kind of, again, adding what's being added to the wall. We still need to have, I think you did it for like the first season or something. You have like one, like you have a little graphic. I don't want to give you extra busy work, but
I don't know. I have this really big special project I've been working on. It's taking a lot of time, but I'll see if I can squeeze it in.
But this like metaphorical imaginary wall of trophies and awards that might be real at some point, but also just can live in our heads. We can add some more names, some more movies, some more stuff to that wall of awards and being inducted into the riffles this season. Best main character of season 7. Art from Silent Night. Best side character from season 7. Rod Williams from Get Out. The best threat from season 7. Rose the Hat from Dr. Sleep. The best movie from season 7, Dr. Sleep. And the best episode of season 7, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
And Pake is giddy right now because he loves all of the picks. And it just worked out that I could support all of it.
Yeah. And then again, we forgot, but that's okay. We don't have to edit around too much craziness. We'll just jump back into it real quick. Honorable mentions for best episodes. Because we've done the honorable mentions for everything else. Might as well throw those in as well. I'll start off with these ones. Barbarian, again, got thrown in as an honorable mention. There was some fun stuff to talk about there. Silent Night, which was on your list, was one of my honorable mentions. Actually doing the Run for Your Lives, the awards, the Riffle Awards for seasons 1 through 4 was on my honorable mentions, because these episodes are always fun for me. Society of the Snow was an honorable for me as well. So,
yeah, mine were Barbarian. It's so funny that we didn't really put Barbarian too much in.
It didn't get any official nominations, I don't think, but it made the honorables everywhere.
Yeah. Belko Experiment, because I love that I got to talk about that movie with you, because it gave me a chance to nerd out, because I know way too much about that movie. Way more than I ever should. Society of the Snow, because it was just great having been, knowing a lot about the background of that story, it was great to be able to see something that was realistic and more true to the story itself and get to talk about it. And I had the chat with us because I had so much fun with it. It was great to be able to give our listeners an opportunity to listen in on some of the, some of what we talk about.
Yeah.
And that was just a small piece of what we talk about because there's lots of different things. I think we've added some great characters, threats, movies, and episodes to the RFYL Awards this season.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be starting season 8.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
A little bit late. We'll start soon. There we go.
We didn't even get to finish.
Looks like the feedback phone's going off. Maybe we can see what some of the listeners had to say about their favorite episodes, movies, characters, whatever this season. Let's see. All right, just a little bit of feedback. This week on our Look Back RFYL Awards special, we had, let's see, anybody want to take a wild guess at who we got giving us our feedback? Who's coming through
Only
for us?
the best.
The one and only.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely love it. You're coming through for us. And she really came through. I love this a lot. Kind of her own RFYL Awards, the Catherine Awards going on right now, and I love it.
I feel like she's going to need to do this every time.
Yeah, see what you've done to yourself. You've set an expectation. Yep. You've set the bar high. Yeah, she definitely really came through with a great kind of rundown of all of her favorites as well. So I love that. She says favorite episode. I couldn't choose one, so I have a top 3. The Tremors rewatch, the Belko experiment, and Dr. Sleep.
Great choices.
Yes. And then for all the other categories and stuff, she also has some other thoughts and input here. So main character, Nimona, with runner-up, Tess from Barbarian.
All right.
Nice. Side character, Abra from Dr. Sleep, and runner-up, Rod Williams, the best TSA agent from Get Out. And yes, before you even say anything, she's with you on the, I guess Abra's a side character.
Mm-hmm.
Abra Stone means more than that to me, so. No, it's
she got love, okay? She did get some love.
Continuing on, threat. This one's an interesting one. It says threat, Society of the Snow. Just the whole concept of it, like whether, I guess, to read into it completely just on my own volition. I don't know, like the snow, the crash, each other, the entire concept, everything is just, it makes
all
sense.
All the things. Definitely. I get that because that movie, I think it's even more impactful because it's based on a true story and it's very, it was very well researched and put together. And as you just mentioned, all of those things.
Yeah, which also I'm going to throw this out here, whether, I don't know if she'd want to, but our friend Maria, who is listens to this podcast, I know from time to time and has written in before, was on a vacation in Spain. It might still be.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
And she just posted she went to a special book signing thing and she actually met, I think,
Eduardo.
Most, if not all, the surviving people from it, because I think some of the others were there also, but then he was doing a signing and stuff and she posted a picture with him and that's just
it is
cool.
So cool.
All right, and to continue on with Catherine's feedback, she then says, I also ranked all the movies this season mostly based on how much fun I had watching them and how likely I would be to rewatch. So this is her list from best to least best. There's no worsts.
You know what? It's a true ranking of our movies this season.
Yeah, which is awesome. That's really fun. So she goes, Nimona, The Belko Experiment, Five Nights at Freddy's, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, Society of the Snow, Barbarian, Get Out, Megan, Dr. Sleep, Hot Fuzz, Dungeons and Dragons, The Purge, Insidious, World War Z, Sharknado, Silent Night, Sweetheart, Annihilation, Final Girl, and Pet Sematary Bloodlines.
Now, Pake, I would like you to redo that to the tune of We Didn't Start the Fire.
Will it work?
I don't know. It probably won't, but as you were reading
I'm already, Like, because even just starting, like, no, Mona, the bell, it's already off tune.
No. But, I mean, it's a good idea to try, I guess, in theory. Well, if you submit feedback now, it will be read on our first episode of season 8. But you can submit feedback on any of the movies we've covered at any time. You can do that by finding us on Facebook and Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on all the podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links that you're ever going to need. And if you have a second, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
We do. Absolutely. Indeed. Appreciate it so much. Of course, speaking of sharing the love, got to give those shout outs to things going on in the Podcastica universe around us here. Lots of fun stuff. I mentioned it last week, so I'll mention it again one last time before we're gone for like a month or a little more. Strange Indeed, my other podcast, because by the time you come back into this, we'll be running on our season 3 final season of Sweet Tooth coverage over on Strange Indeed. Me and Rima will be full speed ahead into that a couple episodes in by the time Run for Your Lives is back. So I'm giving you that heads up now to go definitely on our little break here. Check out Strange Indeed on June 11th, I think, is the date we've set for recording the first one. So it'll probably be up that night or the next day, whatever. Just, the week after it drops on Netflix. So definitely check that out. I'm excited to get back into that world. It'll be fun.
Definitely.
And then, of course, other things to check out. The cast of us still doing their Walking Dead rewatch. Jason and Lucy going through season 2, episode 10, 18 Miles Out. And they will have special guest Archmaester Rennie on there, which that's a name I haven't heard in a little bit. So I'm really happy to see them back on a podcast. That's amazing.
Me too.
Let's see. Jeff, definitely check that out. Rennie's awesome. On the Revisited podcast, Ben and Kristen back together for Ted Lasso rewatch coverage, covering season 3, episode 4. Big week this week, so go check that out. It's a big week for the podcast because it's back and they're covering Big Week. And then on the Sandman cast, Jamie and Mark continuing to cover the Netflix Sandman spinoff series, Dead Boy Detectives, with episode 3, The Case of the Devlin House. So make sure to check that coverage out if you're watching that and a fan there. While Greg and Penny are covering season 2, episode 4, titled Ready to Rumble, of the show Extraordinary, over on the Extraordinary cast. That is a Hulu and Disney Plus situation, if you got those, so go check that out. And then outside of Podcastica, we always give some love to some other great podcast networks and friends that we know. Always give love to TV Podcast Industries, as they are also going through Dead Boy Detectives. And then over on Panels to Pixels, our good friend Mark has got Kirk joining him over there, as they're going to start running through the show Dark Matter. So their first episode is up there as well. The title of that episode, Are You Happy in Your Life? I haven't started watching that show yet, but it's Joel Edgerton, right? So, he's pretty good. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't read any of the books. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it, being kind of pretty excited about what's to come from that. So might be something to check out on my long, ever-growing list of things to watch all the time.
You could start now and not sleep and watch that entire list. We would reach September 1st and you still wouldn't have finished it.
No. It's just so much. So many good things on TV. So, and lots of great podcasts covering all of it. So again, if you are watching Dark Matter, definitely check out the coverage over on Panels to Pixels with Mark. But all of that aside, I usually would say, then you can come back next week to Run for Your Lives, except, no, you can't.
This is the end. Yeah, this is the end of season 7. 7 seasons, almost 4 years of podcasting. Man, it's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, we are giving ourselves a little break, taking about 5 weeks or so off. I think it's come back kind of the beginning of July is the plan. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah, so we'll be back then. Until then, check out lots of other great shows, lots of good stuff. Come listen to me and Rima over on Strange Indeed when we kick that up in June. And then if you need something else to listen to, we've got a great backlog. If you are still episodes of Run for Your Lives you haven't listened to, go check out all of our stuff. On our Facebook page, Daphne just actually posted our previous Riffle Awards winners from all 7 seasons, or all previous 6 seasons. And so if you want to know where to start, you can at least look at like what characters and movies and episodes won awards for those seasons. So you kind of know the best of things that if you haven't listened and watched, go check those out.
That was a lot of fun to put together. Mm-hmm. Finding the images and just making the graphics, because it was just fun to look back at how far we've come.
Yeah.
And I loved that Catherine, I think she sent in feedback last week that the difference between when we covered Tremors the first time and then when we covered it on this rewatch that we did, and how different the show is. And I really think it's because we just got into our own vibe, I guess. So yeah, so this is the end of season 7. I can't believe that it's been 7 seasons, but we will be back in July, and we have a great one to start season 8.
Yeah, I'm excited. So it'll be a lot of fun. So we will see you then.
With that, we have reached the end of this episode and this season. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
And until season 8, bye-bye.